All right, so keeping on kind of with that theme, we were looking at how to create two rows of columns with various different ways of approaching it in Grasshopper. Here's a third way, which is to start with a curve um, instead of with the geometry of the column, which is basically the row, right? So if I come in here and open this guy up, right, we have basically the same thing, but what I've done is I've gone in and I've created, right, a line. So I created a line, right, and then I copied that line. And so I have control over the distance of that copy, right? And then I divided that curve and got the points from the curve and put the column here at the end on each one of those points. Right, so it's a little different way of dealing with it, and it's a little bit more flexible in some ways in the sense that I could do something like this. So I could come into Rhino, and if I had something, a curve like that, I can come in here and I'm just going to set this curve to that container, right? And so if I take that and I replace it, now I've got that guy, right, going into there, and then I can push this guy into there. Whoops, sorry, this goes into there. And push this guy into here and have those two both, right? So it doesn't matter what curve I use, right? I can use any curve. I can use that thing over and over and over again, right? So this part of the process, you can just sort of flip the curve in and out, and it makes it a little bit more flexible in the way that it works, right? So let's go ahead and turn this guy off. And then down here at the very end is sort of starting with the points themselves, right? So and not even using the curves, if I come in and enable that, I get the same thing. But basically what I've done is I've created a range, right? Just like we talked about before. I constructed a point out of those ranges, and then, so let's go ahead and, so I've got this point right out of those ranges, and then I move those points over, and then I just push those points into the plane for the geometry. Now you could, another point I'll bring up is that right here you can come in and you can take a, this doesn't matter like what this is. You could be using the point to place rectangular columns or spheres or whatever you want. The column really becomes secondary. It's really more about the organization of things. And so you can again adjust this range a little differently. It gives you the same result but in a different form. Or if you prefer the series, you can always put the series in and it acts a little differently, right? Like it extends it instead of keeping it into the... So really in the end, these two versions I think in Grasshopper become a little bit more flexible for me, but there are always reasons to use these as well. Now the next thing I'm going to talk about is a more complex system, and once you get into more complex systems, then this type of geometry first becomes extremely complex. The curves work a little better, but it still is a little difficult. And then what happens here is that the putting the information sort of part first actually is much more efficient. So we'll take a look at that.